In 2019, Dean Ambrose left the WWE to join AEW and become Jon Moxley, and has never looked back since. And while Dean Ambrose's run in WWE was good overall, his final time spent in the company may have left a very sour taste in his mouth. Many factors played into why Dean Ambrose wanted to leave the WWE, and today we're going to be talking about them, as well as his last year in the WWE, which is also his worst year in the WWE. So let's get into it. In December 2017, Dean Ambrose suffered a tricep injury which would leave him out of a WWE ring for up to 9 months, and it was during this injury where Dean Ambrose really started to question how much longer he had left in the WWE. As revealed on the Talk Is Jericho podcast in May of 2019, Dean Ambrose had become depressed as he had grown frustrated with the WWE system and the way that certain things were done, and during his injury he realized that he wasn't excited to return to the company, and that's what got him to start thinking about leaving. However, nothing was set in stone yet, and as of that time, Dean Ambrose was still set to return to the company, and when he would eventually return to the company in August of 2018, he had just begun the worst run in his wrestling career. Dean Ambrose returned to the WWE on the Go Home Raw episode to SummerSlam 2018, helping out his boy Seth Rollins against Dolph Ziggler, and then doing it again at SummerSlam to help Seth win the Intercontinental Championship. The Shield would reunite the next night, and they would feud with Ziggler, McIntyre, and Braun Strowman, aka the Dogs of War. Remember that trio? The Shield defeated the Dogs of War at Super Showdown in October, however they were defeated in a rematch 2 nights later on Raw, which saw Dean Ambrose leave frustrated, teasing that he could be about to explode the Shield again. 2 weeks later though, Roman Reigns, whilst accompanied by his 2 Shield brothers, would break the unfortunate news that his leukemia had returned and he would be relinquishing the Universal title and taking some time away from WWE. Later that same night, Ambrose and Rollins would win the Raw Tag Team Championships in the main event in a very feel-good moment that immediately after it saw Dean Ambrose attack Rollins and turn heel. I guess it was being done to try get mega heat on Ambrose, but any heat against Ambrose would quickly fizzle away and turn into groans when the following week on Raw, Dean Ambrose's new character was debuted. He would first start off by burning his Shield vest and instead start sporting a gas mask and start doing segments every week where he would vaccinate himself to cure him from Seth Rollins' illness, and he was now christening himself as the moral compass of the WWE. But this character was just not connecting with anyone, and the fans didn't like it, and nobody including Dean Ambrose didn't like it. In fact, the only person who did was of course none other than Vince McMahon. On the November 26, 2018 Raw, a segment aired with Ambrose giving himself a rabies shot, and apparently this segment was the final straw for Dean Ambrose and what ultimately made him know for sure that he would not be renewing his WWE contract. And in case you weren't aware, it's all these segments with the vaccinations and injections that Vince McMahon thought was such good shit. And being forced to do these segments and play this character, as well as supposedly almost being made to do a promo that mentioned Reigns' leukemia to get heel heat that would have lost WWE sponsors, would be the final nail in the coffin for Dean's time in the WWE, and he wanted out. He would go on to win the IC title at TLC from Seth Rollins, however he lost it after 29 days to Bobby Lashley. He entered the 2019 Men's Royal Rumble at the cursed number 14 spot and lasted well 14 minutes and scored 1 elimination before going out himself, and the next night he had a match with Seth Rollins again, which this time he lost, and apparently it was this night after Raw had finished airing that he would inform the WWE that he was not renewing his contract, which was expiring not too long after WrestleMania. And WWE reacted to this news in a very surprising way, which we had never really seen before, by, well, announcing it themselves that Dean Ambrose was leaving the company in 3 months. And now that everybody knew that Dean Ambrose wasn't going to be in the WWE for not much longer, WWE then took it upon themselves to take their opportunity to just completely bury Dean Ambrose for the next 3 months. Between the time it was announced that he was leaving and his final match in the company, he only won 2 matches, one of those being his final match and the other being a roll-up victory to EC3, which was a return from a loss to EC3 he already had. He also lost to Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley and Elias week in week out, and there was even a segment where he bumped for Nia Jax, and a match between himself and Nia Jax was advertised for some random house show.
The Baron Corbin one-on-one, plus for the first time ever in Jonesboro, an intergender special attraction match as Nia Jax collides with Dean Ambrose. It's the WWE Live Road to WrestleMania.
This match did not happen though, and thank God for Dean that it didn't happen, because if it did happen, Nia Jax was probably going to win that, and it would have been the biggest burial possible. Imagine that actually happened though. Nia Jax versus Dean Ambrose. I'm not gonna lie, I kinda wish we saw that happen. I would have watched it. You know me, I'm a big Nia Jax guy. And Ambrose would slowly start turning face again as another Shield reunion would begin getting teased, and a Shield reunion would end up coming for Dean's farewell match. But in terms of what he was doing in ring, like I said, he was just being squashed and beat down every single week by Drew McIntyre, Lashley, Elias, and any heel they could get their hands on. Drew McIntyre in particular would just destroy him every single week during his build to his match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 35, WrestleMania 35 being a show that Dean Ambrose was not booked on. But after being destroyed and squashed week in week out for about 3 months straight, the Shield's final chapter would come around, which was a WWE Network special that aired just a bit after WrestleMania and would serve as Dean Ambrose's final match and his send-off match in the WWE, where he would be reunited with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, the Shield, once again to take on Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre and Elias in a match that the Shield won, and it was a good send-off for Dean Ambrose. 9 days later, his contract would expire, he would depart from the WWE, and he would debut for AEW at Double or Nothing 2019, and the rest is history. Shortly after his debut for AEW, he appeared on Talk Is Jericho, Chris Jericho's podcast, and talks about his run in the WWE and what ultimately led to him leaving, citing mental exhaustion, a loss of love for cutting promos due to Vince's writing, and feeling like his character had been irreversibly damaged due to all the injection and vaccination angles that they were doing with him. Despite the fact that Vince isn't running the WWE anymore, I don't see Jon Moxley returning. He's one of the top guys in AEW and a flag bearer and a figurehead of the company. AEW really wouldn't be where it is without him in it. And like I said at the start of the video, I think regardless of how his last year was and as bad as it might have been, his run with the WWE overall was still very solid. I mean, the guy was part of the Shield, one of the biggest stables ever. He was a former world champion, an IC champion, a US champion, a tag champion, and a main event guy for a good portion of his run. So all in all, it was a good run in the WWE for Dean Ambrose. And he's doing pretty well for himself right now as Jon Moxley. So let me know in the comments right now, who do you think's better, Dean Ambrose in the WWE or Jon Moxley in AEW?